Today we're going to be looking at a topic that is very exciting to me, and that is the topic of web APIs. What's up guys? So today we're going to be looking at a topic that is very exciting to me, and that is the topic of web APIs. Funny thing about it is that you've probably interacted with web APIs many times without knowing that the name for the parent category was web APIs. But this is exactly what they are. They're a group of functionality that is hidden within your browser that allows you to access things that make your browser do more native things. This is anything from accessing devices with Bluetooth from your computer, accessing the GPU from your mobile device, or something as simple as copying to clipboard. The web APIs span so many things, and we can't get through all of them. But what I want you to know is that most of these are being developed. And if you're interested in seeing how they're supported on your device, you can look at great websites like Can I Use, which will give you an understanding of what devices support what APIs at this current stage. And also there's a new site called Baseline from Google. And Baseline is a great way to see what features are being developed, what are like in stable release versus experimental, and you can get an idea of how these web APIs would work on your computer without having to code something from scratch and then seeing it crash. Now, if you're interested in finding out a bit more about these APIs, a really good resource to look at is Project Fugu. This is a list of many web APIs, and not just the API themselves, but some sites that would be on the internet right now that implement them. These are either contributed by the Google team or the community to say that this site has implemented this API in this way. That said, we're going to jump right into this. So some of the web APIs we're going to be looking at are more on the basic side. And what makes them basic is that the implementation might just require lines of code, or it might be something that's already built into your browser and you didn't know. Things like accessing the microphone, accessing the camera, I would consider more basic, versus APIs like the web HID, which is an API that allows your browser to access the things that are connected to your USB slots on your device, on your computer. We're going to look at a couple examples on how to implement them in Wix, just because Wix is the platform that we build on most often, and we have been using web APIs on Wix to extend Wix functionality for a couple years. Now, if you're a Wix developer like me, Velo is the place we go to get all of Wix's pre-documented APIs that you can use. And one of those APIs is called Wix Window. Now, this is important whether you're a Velo Wix coder or a JavaScript coder, because under Wix Window, you're gonna find little secrets, little snippets that let you know that it's actually using the web APIs to get this done. Under Wix Window, you'll find functionality like copying to the clipboard. And not just Wix Window, but Wix Location, both of them have some interesting functionality that let you know that web APIs are actually being used. And this is a key tidbit. If you forget anything, don't forget this. Most of these web APIs are actually hidden right in your browser under window.navigator. The navigator object is like the home to all of these different features, whether it's web NFC, being able to scan NFC cards and also write to from your browser. That exists under the navigator object. So does Bluetooth. So does checking the battery life of the device that you're on. So many APIs hide under navigator. So if you've forgotten everything else, make sure that you run through that list of all of the properties that are in the navigator object, just so you can play around and see what you can do from the web. Now, knowing that it exists is just one part of the solution. You need to also figure out how you can talk to it from your UI elements, because you need a way to interact, and not everything can be triggered by a button click. If you're using a microphone, you need a different way to let people know that the state of the microphone is in active, it's in listening, versus just having a button there that says start talking. And so that's where the UI and UX is going to be very important in implementing. One of the ways we've done this is for our voice plugin for Wix. You can actually click the button, see that it's listening, and then the browser also responds by putting a recording icon. And this is whether it's Chrome, Safari, Mozilla. It will show that it's actually recording your voice so that you have some visual indication that something is happening. These are some of the small UI features you have to keep in mind when you're designing around triggering web APIs. Another one would be using the camera. Before a device can access the camera, it actually has to tell the device, I would like the permission to access your camera. That way it doesn't just trigger the camera without getting any permission, which would be a security risk on so many levels, right? So you want to also give persons a heads up that you're about to access the web API for whichever one you're going to do. And then you get into the data that comes back from these APIs. Now it can be different depending on what you're looking at. For example, web NFC data from scanning an NFC card or responding to another NFC chip is going to be very different from streaming the data from microphone, which is going to be very different from a payment request web API implementation. So it's important to look at the structure of the data first before you get into any technical details of, I'm taking this data and I need to show it on the screen. Sometimes what you get back isn't just going to be in the format that you need to just put on the screen for the visitor. You may have to do some of your own work in the middle, and that's where understanding the structure becomes very important. Now, this is a lot of description of web APIs, and they really are powerful. You can do so many things with them. I personally had an idea that because web APIs can access things like Bluetooth low energy devices, you can actually use your device, whether laptop or phone, to sense the other Bluetooth devices in your area. And so think about it for event attendance. If you can register the person's Bluetooth MAC address beforehand when they register for the event, then when they do come with the same device, say they use the same phone, then you can say, hey, Chris is actually here because that has been registered. Another practical example, Uber. You see, when Uber started off their MVP, when they launched, they didn't have a native app. They actually had an in-browser solution that was a wrapped web app that used these web APIs. Specifically, it used the geolocation API to do the mapping between, where the driver is and where you are. And so if you're interested in trying this out for yourself, we're going to link to a few resources below so that you can get started. It's great to start in just native JavaScript. I would say you don't need to go straight to a framework like React or something a little lighter like Stencil or Svelte. Maybe you're not as familiar with code and you just want to see what it can be like. Well, we do have a few apps on the App Store that you can just install and try it for yourself. And one of the best ways is to go on Project Fugu and look at the different websites that they have listed there, so you get an idea of what these web APIs are like. But at the end of the day, we don't want you to stop experimenting just based on what we said in this video. We want you to have a wild, fantastic time learning about these APIs and come back and tell us what you have built. Maybe you're even more experienced in web APIs as of today, and you have resources that aren't on Project Fugu. Drop them in the comments. Let people know what can be built with the web. You can build these massive applications all on the web without having to go straight to a native app from the start. Well, that's it for today. I hope you learned something and I hope you're excited to go try out what you can on the web. My name is Chris, and until next time, later.